Welcome to Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast where we delve into the untold stories and experiences surrounding abortion. Stories often missing from everyday conversations, media reports, and even other podcast interviews. I'm your host, Melissa Ohden, the founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. As the author of You Carried Me, A Daughter's Memoir, and Abortion Survivors Break Their Silence, I've had the privilege of hearing the most powerful stories from some of the most resilient and courageous individuals. These stories and these people have profoundly transformed my life, and I believe they have the power to transform yours as well. Together, we will amplify these voices, share the truths that they illuminate, and challenge our culture to recognize what life is truly like beyond abortion. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast where we are unveiling the voices, the experiences, and the inspiration for what life really does look like beyond abortion. Today, I am thrilled to have another friend joining me. I mean, you'll notice that trend. I tend to have a lot of friends who join me on this podcast, but it's because I get to meet the best people around the world who have incredible experiences, who I want you to hear their voices. They have experienced a lot of things. They've learned a lot of things. And a lot of my guests, I think, both challenge and inspire you at the same time. And today is going to be yet another one of those episodes. Today, I want to introduce my friend, Leah Outten, to you. Leah is a woman who I admire greatly, has many layers to her life experiences personally, and then how she's used it professionally. And I want you to listen in today because Leah is a quiet voice, but yet she is a voice that you really need to lean into and hear today. So Leah, thank you so much for joining me.
What an intro to that.
But I mean,
thank you for having me.
You are beautiful, first and foremost, inside and out.
Thank you.
But you have a voice that I know has not always been easy for you to tap into. I think sometimes you have felt maybe like you needed to be quiet, or you didn't have the strength, or you didn't know where your voice could possibly land in our culture and even the pro-life movement. And
sure.
And I think that's an encouragement to other people. So, I mean, let's dig in.
Yeah. No, that's also true.
People need to know about you. What's your story?
My story. Yeah. Well, for me, there's so much you can dive into. So I was pregnant at 16, which has a whole backstory to that too. And so how it relates to this podcast is choosing life at 16. I was offered an abortion, encouraged to have an abortion by just people surrounding me who just felt like, oh, that would be the best thing for this situation. And for me, I had this, even at 16, this deep awareness of life, and that this baby that I was carrying deserved to have a chance at that. And didn't know what that was going to look like. I thought I would just choose parenting. My mom was a single mom, so I figured I would just buck up and do what I needed to do. Whether her father was going to be around or not, I would figure it out. And in that process, I learned a lot about just myself and about God and how people showed up in my life, of family support, church support, teachers. It all just became such a part of my testimony of how God just became so present through the love of other people and the grace and the mercy that they gave at the time. And it empowered me to make my own decision and to be empowered to make an informed decision. And so while I really was ready to parent and wanted to parent, I couldn't find peace with it. And even though my parents were, willing to help support me through that journey too, I just couldn't find peace with it. So I decided to talk to people on the internet and forums back then, almost 22 years ago, and just heard people's stories of what does it look like to be a teen mom, or what does it look like to choose adoption, what can I expect, and whatever path that I go down. And that's where I learned about open adoption, that there was this kind of middle ground of still being in her life and being a familiar face and answering her questions, but also being able to grow up myself and provide her with a stable family and a mom and a dad who are ready to parent. And so that was really eye-opening for me, and I feel like what God used to help just really change the trajectory of my life, of everything that has happened since then, is largely because of just educating myself of what that can look like, and that there's more than just black and white options. It's not, just parenting or abortion. It's not just closed adoption. There's so many gray areas. And so being able to learn through all those different things and what would be best for me and my child. And so found a family who really wanted the same openness with visits and a relationship together. And that's what my ministry has really bloomed out of, is how beautiful that relationship has turned into the last 21 years. She just had a birthday last week. And, we still have this open adoption that's been incredible to be a part of. And I think that's where some of that, when we were talking about the quietness and the hesitancy, is sometimes I have a positive story, and that can be really hard in these crisis complex situations where not everybody has experienced that, or open adoption is still, we're learning so much about it, and how do you do it, and what does it look like, and how it's different for everybody. And so that's what my ministry has come out of, is my heart to be able to help those relationships and help birth mothers to heal, and to not feel alone in that healing. And I know, our perspectives and where we are in the adoption triad is different, where I'm not an abortion survivor, but I still relate to what you're doing as well. It's just from a different angle.
What do you think people need to know about open adoption? Because I think it is so striking to me that you had to walk that out, right? You had to go looking for information about open adoption. And I think that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of inner strength in a time of crisis already, Leah, that you are going through, to then say, right, I have to commit myself to finding answers and a solution, short and long term, that is best for my child and for me. And I don't know that every woman in a time of crisis can make that turn, right? Because especially in today's world, there is so much, it seems like so much more crisis and so many more messages they're getting pushing abortion. So it's like you're trying to cut out all the noise to find solutions. So, what do people need to know about open adoption? What was the hope-filled part of that, right? What was sort of, I hate the word attraction because doesn't seem fitting, but there was something about open adoption that you saw hope in for you and for her.
Yeah, I do need to acknowledge, open adoption doesn't make it easy. None of these paths are easy. It's truly considering what I feel best in this situation. And I do feel like open adoption for me it did provide hope, that because I did love her and do love her so much as one of my children, and I felt bonded and connected to her from the beginning. And so it was a sacrifice to choose adoption and stepping out of that motherhood role and handing her over to her mom and her dad. And open adoption allowed my role as a birth mom to still be honored in her life, of where, like I said, watching her grow, getting to be there for her birthday parties, getting to celebrate her milestones and to know what she looked like, how she's doing, being here to help fill in the pieces of her life puzzle that she has questions about. Those were all things that I found a lot of hope in. And while still being able to grow up myself and mature myself. I do think there is a level of awareness at 16. I was not mature. Like, I was in this predicament for a reason. But I had such a good support system. And I think that's where a lot of women unfortunately don't have, whatever they choose sometimes in these situations. I had people surrounding me going, you can do this, whatever that is. You can parent, you can look into adoption, you can and I think that's also why I have such a heart for just expectant moms of God will work this out and you don't have to walk it alone. And because that having people is so important too. But yeah, open adoption absolutely was a source of hope for me, because I truly feel like I would have not walked down the path of adoption if it had been closed or even semi-open with just updates, because that relationship was so important to me of, I'm willing to step out of this role because I feel like that's what's best for her right now, but I really wanted to maintain that connection for her to know that she was always loved and wanted by all of us from the beginning.
And I'm so glad that you identified that was a good thing for her as well. I think everybody comes to the table with their own experiences in their family or, somewhere in the community, maybe it's their church, related to adoption almost as much as abortion. And, you and I have had conversations over the years. I think it makes people very uncomfortable to talk about open adoption. And I think you have heard more of the things than what I have heard. But, the fact that I searched for my birth parents, some of the feedback I got was, Melissa, you're one of the reasons why people don't want to place their babies for adoption. They don't want you to go looking for them. I'm always like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a normal human response to want to know your history, to want to know your identity. And yeah, possibly, at least have some sort of communication with your biological parent to say, hi, you're a piece of me, I'm a piece of you, we're both alive in this world. It's almost like people can't quite put themselves in your shoes or my shoes to say, wow, you know what, this has an impact on the birth mothers who place and the survivors. And yes, everybody handles it sort of differently. And I find men handle it differently than women in various stages of their lives. But maybe I'm overcomplicating this and you can claw me back. But I feel like a lot of our hang up about open adoption gets told through the lens of adoptive parents.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think we're seeing that shift in social media of where we're starting to see more adoptee and birth parent voices. And I think that's important. But at the same time, it's also swinging so far that it's adoptive parents almost become the villain in the story too. So we've got to find this balance of where everybody and these different perspectives do matter. But I do think with openness, people are so afraid of openness, and that's what a lot of the education calls I do. It's helping to dispel some of these myths that it's not a bad thing to have birth parents involved if it's safe and if it's not toxic, or have different boundaries in place if needed. But it's beneficial for the child to have these pieces, and it's very normal to have questions and to I know for our daughter, who do I look like, where why do I like this food and my adoptive parent doesn't like this food, where do I get this talent from? Just these basic identity questions are so important of any teenager's life, but especially when you add that adoption layer. And I think the fear of birth parents, if they're around, that the adoptee will, one day just up and leave and just want to be a part of their family and leave the adoptive parents. And that's such a common fear that if I open this door to this birth family, they're going to leave. And that's usually not the case, because if you're loving them well, and if you're you're making a safe place to have these questions and to talk about things, and talk about adoption, and it's okay to miss your birth parent, to have questions, making space for them to feel whatever they're feeling. That helps your connection with your child, regardless of how they came into your family. And sometimes I see it where adoptive parents are so fearful of these birth parent connections that it honestly pushes their child away, because they try to control and hold on so tightly that it creates the very problem they're trying to avoid. And so that's why education from the beginning is really helpful. I know you talk about, sharing survivor stories and things like that. It's the same thing with adoptees and birth parents, of just being able to create a safe place to talk about these different stories and learn from them, and what we can do better for these kids that we love.
And I want to reiterate something that you said, because it's so important. I want people to take this away from our conversation. That very thing that adoptive parents can be most afraid of, right? The openness, the connection to a birth family, that they can inadvertently create the circumstance of driving their child further away from them instead of closer. So it's like you become this self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's not to say that it isn't a hard journey for adoptive parents as well, right? Like, we are acknowledging that adoption is a process that has an impact on every member of the triad: the adoptee, the birth parents, the adoptive parents. And we're not saying that anyone, right, has a greater piece of that puzzle. We're just simply saying we need to acknowledge that there is grief and there is a dynamic, and there are different avenues that we can take to increase better outcomes for everyone involved.
Yeah.
I look at the relationship that my mom and dad, my adoptive parents, have with my birth mom, Ruth. And honestly, Leah, if I could go back in time, I mean, of course, like, my magic wand would take away Ruth's abortion, and I would have been simply placed for adoption if that would have been a choice that she and my birth father wanted at the time. I think they probably would have parented me. But I can look and I know how different Ruth's life, and I mean our extended family, and then my life could have been if there would have been an adoption plan made for me and a level of openness, because instead what we got was the trauma of abortion, the secret of my survival, me being placed without her consent, 30 years of her not knowing I survived, and then trying to navigate this from the survivor standpoint, who's an adoptee, the birth mother standpoint, and then my mom and dad as adoptive parents who raised me to love Ruth, but at the same time felt like they had to protect me because of the abortion, when in fact, if there would have been some level of openness, none of us would have been going through all of that uncertainty and grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But fear, I mean, granted, ours is an interesting example, but I do tend to find people tend to be so afraid of what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a level of quote unquote messiness related to open adoption that I think sometimes it's that people maybe don't even trust themselves to navigate it. So it's like, I'm just going to go ahead and shut that door because that's the easiest thing to do.
Sure.
And what would you say to somebody who is like, just going to shut that door?
I think it's important to remember that parenting is not all about ourselves as parents. It's about what is best for our child. And sometimes that is sacrifices and uncomfortableness. For me as a birth mom, that was sacrificing that role for her good at that time. As a parent now to 5 kids, there's things that I have to do that are uncomfortable, but I know it's for their good. And I think it's, as an adoptive parent, haven't adopted, but observing adoptive parents and like how our daughter was raised. And one of the wonderful things that they have always done is really supported their children in these different phases of their growing up, and what they needed through these different times. And sometimes that was being a little more open-handed. At 18, she wanted to come stay with me for a longer visit. And they were like, okay, that's what you need to have for your more pieces to your story and to build those bonds and to see what life is like with Leah. We support you in that. And I can imagine as a parent that was difficult to, like, it kind of was almost like we switched roles of where they were sharing her back with me. And I can imagine that being difficult, but remembering at the end of the day why we do this, and it's for her. And yes, I have benefits and my kids have benefits and they have benefits of knowing her medical history and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's for her and what she needs and what her voice is. And so we've always made sure to honor that first and foremost. And I think that's what adoptive parents have to keep in mind, that it's just because something's uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong. It's really checking yourself of it's a surrendering process. Yeah.
Well, and I think you and I would both agree that part of the missing puzzle related to adoption and open adoption is that there hasn't been a lot of support and a lot of those voices, right? We tend to hear the same voices, just like like in the discussion of abortion, we tend to hear and see the same voices, the same thing about adoption. And so where have people been able to turn for the last 21 plus years and more than that to say, how do you navigate this? And what does this look like? And what is the benefit? And right, who do I turn to when I'm having a challenge? I mean, support and education tends to be the issue. It's not that parents are right, like heavy-handedly wanting to say, yes, I'm gonna walk out this path. No, they're just doing the best that they can with what they've got. So how do we shift this? What have you been a part of? What are you doing right now? Where can people start to turn to see things about adoption and open adoption through a lens like yours?
Yeah, I'm encouraged, having walked this journey for 21 years now, of just how much has changed, and it really started because of families like that I chose who were doing it intuitively, of like, we see the benefit, we realize this, and now I can speak into it personally, but also professionally. So I help Christian adoption consultants and help educate their families, and it's just so incredible to see how they really are hungry for information. They want to know how to love this child well, and the birth parents, and how to navigate the hospital experience, and this lifelong journey that we're on. And so I feel like I'm really encouraged to see that more and more families who are wanting to step into this space are hungry for information. And so education really is vital, and just talking with people who have walked this journey. And open adoption is we're still learning so much about it, and we're still there's not many birth moms and there's not many adoptees who are in a place sharing their stories, but supporting those who are, and inviting them to speak, and to at adoption conferences you mostly see adoptive parents talking to adoptive parents, so inviting more birth parents and adoptees to educate is really helpful. We're seeing a lot more books about it, so just supporting these people like me who are trying to share the benefits of this and how to do it. Obviously every story is different, but there's key things that can be applied to many different situations. So that's my heart, and I hope that just hope that it will continue to grow. But you can, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram at Leah Outten, or my website. And we're also starting a nonprofit to kind of continue this of education and healing resources, because, it is, adoption's just one moment of the process. There's still a whole journey after placement for everybody. And so being able to have continual resources and other people to know you're not alone in this, and to where to turn to when you need advice for different situations that come up. So that'll be the Ampersand Initiative, where we just want to acknowledge that life is both hard and beautiful, and that, especially with adoption, you can have grief and gratitude coexist together, and just honoring all the different feelings that come with it.
The Ampersand
Initiative.
I love it. I don't even know what to say, except of course you would have something that amazingly beautiful, creative, and fitting.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, things tend to be both and not either or in our world.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. I know your branding will be spot on, just like it always is.
Thank you. No, we're excited. It was really neat to see. We had we're going to start with retreats. That's our thing. And the last one we had was just so incredible, with birth moms of all different walks of life and all different ages, after placement. And just, we've all really resonated with the ampersand, the and sign of just like, it's okay to feel really grateful for all the positive experiences we do have, or the relationships we do get to have, but also that it's okay to still feel sad about it and to have grief. And it's just more complex than black and white. And when we can honor all those feelings, that's where healing happens and acceptance happens, and we can work through them.
Well, and I love it for every member of the adoption triad, right? As a survivor of abortion, my experience is just different, but I can tell you, as an adoptee, knowing that I belong in both of my families is exactly what my identity needed, right? I am not called to choose whose family I'm a part of. It's an and. I am a part of my biological family, and I'm a part of my adoptive family. And I think for adoptive parents to say, that is my child, and I also know they have a family of origin, and I show respect and care in an age-appropriate way, right? In whatever manner is healthy. The and is for everybody.
Yeah, that's our vision. I love that. That's encouraging to hear.
Do you guys have a website, or it's in process?
Yes, it'll be up.
Okay, so by the time we air this episode, we will be able to, maybe we'll post on social media and in the transcripts where people can find your new nonprofit's website.
Yeah.
You'll be on all social media?
Yep, we'll be on social media too.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I so appreciate your encouragement through the years, and getting to, as you said, like, just getting to connect with people all over is such a gift, and you're one of them.
Well, and staying the course, right? I think sometimes people can think, because we all know each other and we all like work in the same space, that we must just have all these like little nooks and crannies that we fit in. But if we're being honest, we sort of have to be scrappy. And
Yes.
And when you are quiet and sweet-natured like you are, it's you have to keep scrapping and figuring out where you belong and walk it out. And sometimes it feels very lonely. I know that.
Yeah.
But you have continued to persevere like you always have.
Thank you.
And you've made a huge difference. Where can people find out your personal story and your book? Because talking about beautiful things, that is a very beautiful book.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote my memoir that shares my experiences. It's called The 16th Year. So a signed copy is available on my website, leahoutten.com, or it's on Amazon. And then I also have an Expectant Mom devotional. If there's someone, it's really ideal for like pregnancy centers or maternity homes, anyone who is just struggling with, okay, I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. It walks through 30 days to encourage her. It's the book that Katie and I wrote it together. It's the book we wished we had when we were pregnant. And And then we also have a birth mom devotional coming out in the fall for after placement, because there's such a need for, again, post-placement healing and resources. And so agencies were really requesting, like, please make one for after placement. So that'll be out later this year, and that's available for pre-order now on my website.
Perfect. And it's LeahOutten for folks who want to find your website.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I could talk to you all day, and frankly, we need to catch up sometime really soon. But I want to leave it at that open adoption is an option, and that we can continue to do more and better, even in the pro-life movement, to educate people about this and to amplify those voices, and ultimately to support every member of the adoption triad. And that right, we know this is like a life cycle. And the more we support the people who are going through it, the more obviously people will be healed, the more they're going to share their stories, which leads to more education, right? So
yes.
What you are being called by God to do is an incredibly important part of that process. So thank you, my friend, for being steadfast and being just so patient, and so you're just so loving.
Thank you. That's great encouragement. Patient is a great word for it too. Just be, patient, steadfast. And I've been told I have like a gentle spirit. And so, it can be uncomfortable to step into these spaces where there can be some really bold and more, confident, and, God is building me up to where whatever he wants me to do. So I'm here for the journey and in his timing.
The gentle adoption storytelling whisperer.
Yep. That's what I've been told. I'll take it.
Well, thank you again for joining me. And you, the listener, thank you for joining Leah and I in this, what I think is a pretty vulnerable conversation about adoption and open adoption in general. Please follow Leah Outten, OUTTEN.com. Visit her website, look at those books, look at those devotionals, follow her on social media, and be one of the first to know when they are launching their Ampersand Initiative movement. And if you're a pregnancy center or another pro-life organization who is interested in having resources and supports for birth moms, please do everybody a favor and reach out to Leah today. Thank you again for joining me on another episode of Life Beyond Abortion.
Life Beyond Abortion is a podcast presentation of the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions on the show are those of the host and her guest, and not necessarily those of the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more about Melissa's work at melissaoutten.com or by following her on Instagram at Melissa Outten. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode of Life Beyond Abortion.